Welcome back to Breaking Digital. I'm Doyle Buehler, and today I'm talking with Tim Hughes, who's an expert in social selling. He's the Digital Leadership Associates company founder out of London, England, and his book is called Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, and it's a fascinating look at what we really need to be doing to change the sales process and how that actually is affecting sales. Because as Tim states, if you don't sell, you don't actually exist. So something to consider. One of the fascinating things was 95% was a statistic that he showed was that 95% of content that everybody produces is not actually read or absorbed or consumed, or however you want to describe it. What does that mean? That means that you need to really understand how social selling works, how to use it, how to build a rapport, and how to build your business as well. So looking forward to talking with Tim Hughes from Digital Leadership Associates coming up next.
Overwhelmed with online, or just wanting to learn more about how you can build a successful business amidst all of the self-appointed gurus, big buzzwords and empty promises? The Breaking Digital podcast by Doyle Buehler tells you exactly what smart entrepreneurs need to know to escape the clutter, get clear of the confusion, and pass the bullshit of building and growing a successful business online. It's about digital leadership and delivering the best value for your business online to your audience. Now, here's your host and author of the book on digital leadership and online marketing, The Digital Delusion, Doyle Buehler.
All right, so welcome back. Today I'm with the amazing Tim Hughes from London, all the way from London, England. Welcome, Tim.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, pleasure having you on the podcast. So you're from the Digital Leadership Associates in London, as well as the author of Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. Fascinating subject. Tell us a bit about yourself, Tim.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Dor, for having me on. I've been in I've been in sales for about 25 years. I've been in social for coming up to nearly 8 years, and I've just come out of working for Oracle Corporation. So I left them at the in the summer of our summer, so August time. And I set up my own company with a colleague of mine called Adam Gray, and we call ourselves Digital Leadership Associates. So Adam is AG Social Media on Twitter, and he's also the author of the book Brilliant Social Media. I was actually involved in a big sales transformation at Oracle, where we moved the salespeople from being traditional on-premise salespeople who were probably doing one deal a year for like $2 million to having to do 5 deals a year, and they were having to prospect for them. And we did a massive transformation, and part of that included social selling. And I was interested in social, and I started blogging about social selling. Then 12 months ago, so it was actually this time last year, I was writing the book, and then released the book in the July, and actually went into the bestseller list on pre-order. Wow. I think there was a lot of interest for people are very are ready to absorb information about social selling because it's so new, and I've carried on blogging, and I've done some 50 odd blogs since the book came out. I generally blog once a week. So I might as well say it. So I'm Timothy_Hughes on Twitter. Please follow and connect with me. And I'm also on LinkedIn. And please, if you're listening to this, don't be afraid of connecting with me and starting a conversation. Yeah. Social is about being social, and it's about being inclusive, not exclusive. So, just because I've written a book and I blog a week doesn't mean that you can't connect with me. So right. I just thought you want to get that over.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I've built a lot of friendships. I mean, you're an example, Doyle. Well, we've never met. Right. You're the other side of the world, and we're connected on a number of social networks. And I kind of see you as a friend. And you post some great stuff, and you seem like an interesting person online, and that's an interest. That's a point that people need to understand, is that you come across as a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
You may actually be an axe wielding murderer, and I don't know that, but online you come across as a decent person, with an interesting life.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we need to give that perception that we are, and you're not an axe wielding murderer.
No, thanks for clarifying, Tim.
Yes, okay.
You forgot the part about, being handsome online. I thought that was going to be the first thing you talked about.
Well, luckily you are, Doyle, but
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so I mean, social selling and that's sort of a term that's just sort of suddenly seemed to have appeared, within the last 18 months or so. So what sort of transitioned us into that mode, or has it existed forever perhaps? Just sort of how we've defined it, but what sort of transitioned us from sort of typical selling to social media to social selling, and is there a connection there?
for me, there's been a massive change in the way that people buy, and that's really the critical thing. That their CEB have got some figures that say that now people don't necessarily go and ring up a salesperson and then buy something. They actually do research online. And I think most of us, whenever we want to buy something, the first thing we do is we turn to some level of search engine, and we usually do some research. So when I started selling, most people needed to actually talk to a salesperson, and they needed to get something like 80% of the information from that salesperson. Now they only need to get 20%. And CEB are saying that most people, when they go on, especially in B2B buying, what they do is that they go online and they do a whole bunch of research, and they don't actually connect with the salesperson until some 57% of the way through the buying process. Now, I've got research from SAP that says it's 85%, and I know a salesperson who works at NetSuite, who was called up and said, "I want to buy your ERP system, and can you just tell me how much it is and how I sign for it?" And they said, "Well, don't you want a demo?" I said, No, I've seen all the demos on YouTube and read your white papers, and this is the product I want to buy. Now, they obviously weren't the best negotiators, but there are people that are going online and making purchases. And this dysfunction that's taking place within purchasing right now, social selling is really the anti part to the dysfunction that we're seeing.
So do you see a spillover into traditional retail as well?
Yes, I mean, in retail, I think we probably call it showrooming, which is where people. You go to the. I must admit, I do it sometimes. You go to a retailer, you try it, you try something, and then you actually go online and you see if you can buy it cheaper. And I know that there's certain retailers in the UK that have actually realised that if they give actually people free and pretty decent Wi-Fi, they can actually pick the showroomers up in the store and actually start giving them offers. So I certainly think from a retail perspective, I've got an Amazon Echo, and the whole point of that is to completely circumvent traditional retailers, certainly here in the UK, because I can order everything from Amazon.
Yeah.
And that transformation and that disruption that's taking place I think it's just becoming part of the norm now.
It is.
I don't think there's a time we talked about digital disruption, and it's kind of like, well, this is everyday life.
Yeah.
It's a contradiction to say that digital disruption is business as usual, but it kind of feels like it.
Yeah. So is it going to how is it going to change then in the short and long term?
I just think it's going to get this disruption is just going to get faster. And what we're seeing is that there's a traditional banks and retailers there but their value proposition is in effect being salami sliced by apps and new entrants into the market. We've had a number of challenger banks, and I'm a big reader of what's going on in Australia. And while I don't live there and I don't have my finger on the pulse about that, it seems to be something that's happening there as well. And we've got a customer that's heavily into blockchain, and they see that being a major disruptor to the way that we live our lives and interact with companies. And I just think that there's so much opportunity now, and there's so much access to development platforms and apps and stuff like that, that there's bound to be some 15-year-old kid developing something that's going to be the next Facebook. We just don't know about it.
Right. But would the sort of the concept of social selling, do you think that's going to have to change or adjust, or is it just sort of integrating the other pieces?
I mean, I believe that social selling is now the norm, but we end up calling it social selling because we need to somehow differentiate it from the old. But there's a number of us who using social and building relationships on social is the way that we work and the way that we sell. I did an interview with a guy called Richard Young, and I sort of said, so when did you start using social during the day? And he said, well, it's 7:30 when I got on the train in the morning. I don't differentiate between using social during my during office hours and during the day. I'm a sales guy, and I'm a sales guy from the moment I get up, and therefore I'm using social. But we are seeing a number of things changing in the way that people buy, and I don't think that your classic salesperson are actually keeping up with the dysfunction that's taking place, or realizing that they can get and actually get and influence it.
So you feel then that the typical sales person hasn't really been able to embrace the social selling aspect?
Not the greatest percentage of it. There are people that are doing it, but they tend to be more exceptions than the rules. I wrote an article some 18 months ago with a friend of mine who came to me and he said, I'm getting 10 C-level meetings a week using Twitter. And I sat down and we wrote that blog together and put that out. And I've actually started putting it out again because it still resonates with people. And I've just had someone come to me this morning saying, "Wow, that's a great story. I've circulated it amongst my sales team." And it's like, it's an 18-month-old, 2-year-old article.
Okay. Yeah.
So people have been using social and getting an ROI out of it for a long time. And we're just waiting for people to catch up.
Yeah, no, for sure. But do you find that that's sort of more for the sales side and the professional sales, or should this be integrated into every C-level, every director of every company kind of thing that's doing business in the digital space?
Well, I'm a great believer that everybody is in sales, regardless of where you sit in an organization. Because if you don't sell anything, then
then you don't exist.
No money comes in. Therefore, you don't exist.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's people that would say, "Well, I'm not a salesperson." That's fine. Now, what we're seeing is that what you need in certainly in nowadays is a personal brand, and so you need to have actually created that online, and crafted something certainly within LinkedIn and probably Twitter. So that when people actually go online and search for you, and that can be a person or it can be a brand, A, that they find you, and B, that they find you interesting and actually want to engage with you. And that's quite often the difficulty people find, because if we look at something like LinkedIn, quite often what people will have done is put their CV up there. But nowadays, it's not good enough. If I go to your LinkedIn profile, it's a bit like I was setting this conversation up at the beginning of the call, where when I find somebody on LinkedIn or Twitter, I immediately make a judgment about whether they're funny, whether they're interesting, whether they're passionate about their job, whether they're good at their job, and you what you do is what you need to do is actually make sure that if someone sees you, they draw the right conclusions that you want them to do.
Okay.
And for example, my girlfriend works for Accenture, and her customer, if they say, right, here's a team of people, here's 10 people that are going to work on this project, her customers basically go online and look at LinkedIn and said, well, you said that this person had 5 years experience. According to LinkedIn, they're a student.
Okay.
Therefore, we want like £500 or £1,000 or whatever it is off the day rate.
Okay.
So it's not just a personal thing where I go online and I'm making a view about that person, but people are making business decisions based on what they're seeing on social media.
Okay. And in my case, you were able to come to the conclusion that I'm not an axe murderer. Is that correct?
Well, you don't seem like one.
Okay.
No. And that's the conclusion that you want. If I'm going to go, if I always look at people's social media, and I recommend people do this before they have a meeting and check them out. And what you're looking for is are you going to have an interesting meeting with them? Are they passionate about their job? It may be if you're going to place business with them, you're going to say, am I going to trust this person? And I've often actually shown people, when I was at Oracle and we happened to be competing with SAP, I would actually put up two LinkedIn profiles, an Oracle one that was particularly boring and dull, and an SAP one which was particularly amazing and engaging, and say, okay, so which product are you going to buy? And what I was trying to point out to the salespeople was, even before somebody has visited your customer, it's not even anything to do with the demonstration. They can actually make a judgment that they're going to buy from a competitive company. And that can all and the deals can be lost purely just on what you look like on social media.
Yeah. Well, that's powerful stuff. So it's really become more of a research tool, and just sort of to get that extra understanding of the person.
Yes, and sales has always been, just trying to get that little bit of competitive advantage over other people. It's not about making big changes. It's about making the small changes and getting that little bit ahead. And right now, there's a lot of people that are pretty bad at social media, and actually, you can move the needle by actually being average rather than being fantastic about it. Which is why I always recommend to people that they should start now, because they can actually move the needle and make a difference actually by making small changes.
And what kind of small changes should they make?
Well, if we talk about a classic a LinkedIn profile, if the first thing that people should do is actually go to Google and Google themselves. So if people are actually searching for you, what they'll do is that you'll see what they'll see. So, for example, LinkedIn is particularly friendly to Google. Google quite like it because it's got lots of content in. So if you Google your name, then your LinkedIn profile, your name and your job title should actually appear. And what you need to be doing is when you're just defining your profile, is making it that people are curious to actually look further. So if, for example, you have your name and your job title and it's Master Principal Consultant, it's probably not, if you looked at that, you'd probably not be very curious to actually go further. Whereas one of my, Adam, my business partners, has got a job title on there which says probably the best financial advisors in Ipswich. Now, it doesn't matter where Ipswich is, but the fact that you've chuckled, you'd probably go, that sounds quite funny. I'm going to take a look at that. So you've actually created that curiosity for someone. And you may have actually, quite often with social media, you've gone and looked at something else, and then you've actually seen this person's job title and you're immediately looking at their profile.
Can you go too far with that? Because I saw there's one fellow out there, can't recall his name, but it's like some may have called me the best marketer in the world kind of thing. And it was like, what? Are you serious?
Yeah, I think you can, and I think
Okay.
I
You
mean
can
I've
go too
seen one.
far.
Yeah. I mean it's down to I think that there's a there's some people that put that they're the best person in the world, which is kind of not too bad, because I mean if your knee's bad and you need to find a knee surgeon, and someone said and they said the surgeon said, I am the best knee surgeon in the world, all I do is knees, you'd go, I'm the person for me. But if the person said, I'm the best knee surgeon, but I'm also a taxi driver and I'll come and pick you up, and then when I take you to the hospital, I'm also a chef, so I'll cook you a meal. You'd actually then think, no, actually, I want someone who just does knees. So yes, I mean, there's I don't know if you've ever seen the film Spinal Tap, but there's a
long
quote in
time
there that
ago.
there's a thin line between being clever and stupid.
Okay.
And actually writing your profile is generally hard work, because you're probably trying to inject into it some level of humor, but without being too big-headed. And whereas you want to get across, I'm happy to say that as far as I'm concerned, Digital Leadership Associates is the best organization in the world if you want to have your social sorted out. There's two high profile people with social. Now you can kind of understand that, but you could, if you put that in writing and put it out on social media, it probably would look a bit big-headed.
Yeah, so have some I guess humility and just realization that
yes,
yeah, or you have to back it up.
Yes, yeah. I mean, which is why that person has put probably the best, because and in a way that gives it a certain amount of humor as well.
Yeah, that could be his point too. So
Yes.
So you said you had like 25 years of selling.
Yes.
That's fantastic. But what sort of differentiates, and perhaps it's an easy answer, perhaps not, but what really differentiates the change in the process of selling between 25 years ago and now?
Well, I would actually argue that actually nothing has changed, but then lots of things have changed. So when I first started in selling, I remember I went for my first meeting, and I was working with a salesperson, and I said, so what do I do? And they said, well, you go and build rapport. And I said, well, how do you do that? I said, well, you go into the office, you sit down, and the person will have pictures around the room, and it will be Formula One, or it will be fly fishing or something. And you go in there and go, oh, wow, are you interested in fly fishing? Or you're interested in rugby or something like that. And then you build a conversation with them, and then that's how you build a relationship with them. And actually, that's what we do with social. So if I find a person that I'm going to see and they're on Instagram and they're posting pictures, it's probably something that they're actually interested in. So all I'm really doing is moving my analog ways onto social. And what social allows me to do is I'm able to do it quicker, and I'm able to scale it faster. What I for example, I wrote a blog this week about the best sales, the best way to work with your customers that you could ever have. And one of those things is, I was with some people and I said, what happens if you could take all of your customers out to lunch every day, sit down in front of them and tell them about your products and services? And they said, yeah, we'd love to do that, but we just don't have the time, and we don't have the waistline to do it. And I said, well, you can actually do that, and actually do it with 480 million professional people across the world. Because what you can do is you can post on LinkedIn, and if you do it in a way which isn't boring and spammy, and you're interesting and engaging, and you're putting out information that they may not have already, and you're giving them some insight, what you're able to do is actually put that information out there and be front of mind of your customers every single day.
So
and that's one of the And that's one of the things about social, and it allows you to do it at scale.
So it's
for example,
shortcutting.
yeah, and a lot of people, the objection I always get is, yeah, but it's all about big companies. They've got lots of resources. Yeah, this is actually how small to medium enterprises can actually scale. Classic David and Goliath situation, where small companies can actually scale above big companies without a lot of resource. Social media is kind of free apart from your time. And you're able to look like a big organization. If you go to Digital Leaders A, which is our Twitter account, we're nearly at 5,000 followers in 5 months. And we kind of look like a global big organization, but we're 6 people based in London. And that's what you can do with social, especially for SMEs.
Scaling SMEs, like we basically are able to do that without sort of a huge cost. So it's really leveled the playing field.
Yes, I think it has. SMEs are able to go out and compete against big organizations. And quite often with big organizations, they are in a similar situation, that they don't understand social and digital. They don't necessarily have all the great ideas. And it allows SMEs really to really position themselves and to make them look like they're probably bigger than they are. So, really punch above their weight.
Oh, that's I guess the power of everything that's happening is we're able to reduce that complexity and make it simple. And maybe that's fundamentally that change, like I was asking, from 25 years ago to today. It's simplified it, it's made it clearer, it's made it easier. From the other side of that, does that make it more cluttered then, like where everybody's trying to sell and everybody's trying to do this and do that, so you kind of again get lost in all this clutter?
You can get lost in all the clutter, and that's where you need to the clever bit comes in, which is where you stand out. And you stand out by having great content that people want to actually read and engage with. And so there was some research recently that said that 95% of content was never read. Mm. So you need to be in a situation where you can take other people's content and put it out and which I would call curating content, but you need to be in a situation where you're actually creating unique content for you as an organization. And the thing that you need to understand is that probably the worst person to write it is you. Because you know all about your products and services, and you kind of know why you want to do it. So what you do is you pack it full of facts and things. And what you need to understand is actually your customer knows nothing. And therefore, we actually write a lot of content for people. And the first time we pitched this, it was actually about blockchain. And they said, well, what do you know about blockchain? And we said, nothing. And they said, well, you're not really the right people. And we said, well, what do your customers know about blockchain? And they said, well, nothing. I said, well, wow. maybe we're the ideal people, because what you need to do is you need to get over to these people that they need to talk to you. And what happens is that, we're currently in a situation where we're talking to someone about their website, and what they've done is that they've put every single fact and figure about the company and about the propositions known to man on the website. So we said, well, if someone comes to your website, why have they got a reason to ring you up? Well, no, because they can get every single thing about your company, everything about your product, and not actually need to ring you. And what we want as salespeople is meetings. So if we leave a little bit, little bit of ambiguity, and we leave a little bit of and write it in a way that's gets the person to go, that's interesting. This is the best blockchain company in the world. I'm looking for a blockchain company. I need to talk to them.
Yeah. Don't you
and
think...
at that point, when they make contact, you've got your ability to say, as always with salespeople, if they're good salespeople, when they have that first meeting, they'll get a second one and a third one and whatever. Sorry,
Yeah.
Doyle, what do you say?
No, no, that's okay. It's a really interesting topic. But why do you think that that happened though? Because we seem to be going, we kind of took two steps forward and then one step back. Like you said, the sales process really hasn't changed, but we've kind of gotten stuck in this state where, yeah, there's too much information. So, you said that people were kind of pulling back in terms of how much information they present so that they do reach out and touch you or call you or whatever, right? So we've kind of, I don't know, swung the pendulum too far to say, hey, it's not all just digital. It's more about the relationship as well.
Yes, social allows you to build relationships online, and so when I this time last year when I was writing my book in January 2016, I knew that I wanted to. The only way that I was going to sell my book was to not only be able to present it or promote it through my network, but also to present it and promote it through other people's networks. So I actually set about building relationships with friends, with colleagues online, to make sure that when it came to actually putting my book out there, people would actually be willing to actually say, "Here's a great book. I think you should read it." And what I was able to do was able to drive those sales by going through, as I say, other people's networks. And the only way that you can do that is if the people think that you're interesting, you've got something useful to say, you're probably saying something different, you're authentic, and they trust you, because they're not just going to do it for the sake of it. And one of the things about being online is, first of all, you're in control of what you see and what you don't see. So if you don't like somebody or you don't like what they're saying, just unfollow them or block them or whatever. You don't actually have to, you are the people in control. So you can filter out stuff, but you also have the ability to not only go through your network, but kind of what I would call like a. Do you remember the beer Heineken, when they used to say, it reaches parts that other beers cannot reach? You can subtly promote your product and services or your book or whatever it is through other people's networks, and reach people that you're not actually connected to. For example, I posted something. I posted an interview on. I do a weekly podcast like similar to you on YouTube. Posted that last night, and somebody actually said to two people, you need to listen to this. And when I went and looked at those two people, so there was somebody that I was connected to, but he was actually recommending to two people I wasn't connected to about listening to the recording. So what I'm able to do is take my message, and it's propagating through people that I'm not necessarily connected to. Now, I've actually, just before I came online here, I actually wrote a little note to those people and said, it's really nice that this person has recommended me, but it would be great if we actually were able to talk direct and be connected on LinkedIn. Didn't sell the product, didn't sell what I do, just really a connection request. I suspect that they'll probably connect with me, and then they're able to see everything that I do, and then everything that I do and I put out that's of interest will then be front of mind. So it's just a way of nurturing the people and building a network, and I talk about in my book about building a community of people, and community is a bit like this person who actually recommended me. Classic word of mouth that's been around for years, but they're doing it, and we're able to do it at scale over on a social network. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a complex process though, and there's a lot of different pieces. What would you tell somebody how to focus in doing this, setting up for lack of a better word, a social selling program, or is that even a word? But how would they set something up? What should they really focus on?
So usually if people come to me and say, what should I do about social selling? The first thing I say is read my book, which I remind you is Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Change Makers, and it's available on all Amazon platforms. The second thing is that about social selling is a change of behavior, and a change of behavior comes about by doing something different rather than necessarily using a tool. So social selling isn't about necessarily about LinkedIn or Twitter. It's about the way that you do things. So, for example, if you take a gym membership, first and foremost is that you to make any improvement, you actually got to go to the gym.
Do you?
Yeah. The second thing is that maybe you should take some instruction while you're there, because maybe you should be doing something different, and also maybe you should be changing your diet, because you can't, it's all very well going to the gym, but the fact that you're going to McDonald's on the way back from the gym, it probably isn't helping you. So there's a whole, so it's not actually the gym that's going to change. There's a whole environment around that's actually going to help make the changes in your life. And what we find with salespeople is it's all about the change. And for us, what we do at Digital Leadership Associates is help organizations. We provide training, but we also provide the change around that. So that quite often is where, we walk into organizations, can you come and help us with social selling? And then you go, so why isn't the senior people at this meeting? Well, they don't believe in it. Okay, well, then this is going to fail. So, so we have some IP, and we run workshops for people where we actually get senior management in the room, and we get them and explain to them why they can make a revenue impact and a competitive advantage by using social. So, yeah, it's social is not something that somebody can just say, okay, I've got it, and off we go. There's a whole bunch of training that's around that. One of our biggest objections that we get is probably over the last 10 years, there's been certainly in the corporate world, a massive push to stop anybody talking to the press or anybody having any external communication with anybody. So when I was at Oracle, you had to go on a 2-day training course before you could become a spokesperson and actually talk to the press.
Okay.
And now what we're saying to people is every employee can put information out there, and people are going, well, you've told me, you've basically been telling me for years I can't say anything, and now I'm absolutely terrified about tweeting anything. So it's for organizations taking people, certainly the main majority of the organization along is a big program, because they're also terrified about posting something on social media and getting it wrong.
Yeah, pushing the wrong button.
Yeah, and so actually, and what you usually find is people are actually quite good at social and doing it for their personal things. But when you kind of cross over and say, right, what we need to do is put something out and not be boring about it, they just completely freeze.
Do you have like a worst case study like that you've gone, oh my goodness, what did you guys do?
Well, there's a number of examples of where people have done it badly, but there's great examples of where people have actually done it right, and always with old school PR or is that you manage the situation. You're in control, and you've probably put some information out in advance. There's a situation where there's a shipping line, and unfortunately because the ship's going through the sea, and it can't stop. It's not something like, hey, there's something in front of me, I can stop. So what happened was they hit a whale.
Oh, geez.
And they were coming into port, and they were, it's something that happens, I think, about once a year on their boats. And they hit a whale, and when they come into port, they will come into the port with the whale on the front of the boat. So you can imagine this is a PR disaster.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And what they do is that they actually manage it. if it happens, they phone a person and they actually get stuff out there to say, this is what's happened. This is why it's happened. We're really sorry. We can't stop the ship. We donate money to marine, investigations and stuff like that. And what they're able to do is that they manage it in real time. So rather than the sort of my phone blows up because of the battery and then deny it, and then loads of people start posting on social media their phone, and then actually it turns into a PR disaster, and there's people having to apologize and lose their jobs and all kinds of stuff. It can be managed. But if you're getting the training, in, you should, this kind of thing, certainly from an individual level, shouldn't be happening.
So give them the skills so that they can be transparent and upfront as well.
Yes. And if you make a mistake, delete it. If you make a mistake, apologize.
Okay. Yeah, no, for sure. It's been a fascinating discussion, Tim. I actually have one quick question as well, because it kind of stirred up a lot of talk today on social media that I was just asking, because I'm writing a second book, and one of the things I wanted to know was what's the difference between a sales process and a sales funnel. And there's really two sides of the fence. I'd love to know what you think. What is the difference between those two?
Yeah, I saw that. So for me, a process is something like Miller Hyman or Holden, which is processes that I've been on, which is where you step through a process through a sale, and there's certain things you do at certain places. And a sales funnel is a kind of a magical, mystical thing that people manage their forecast with, and kind of see. It's kind of something that is a one-dimensional thing that kind of sits on the wall, and people say that I'm 10% or 20% of the way through, and then and then businesses work out, okay, so this is where all the salespeople are, and this is where all the deals are, and this is okay. So in 6 months' time, we should have this amount of money. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I see the two.
Okay, so that it should be focused more on a process or on a funnel.
So if you're forecasting, then you need to be focused on the funnel. Mm-hmm. If you're selling to somebody, then you need to think about. So I'm a great believer that sales is a process. Mm-hmm. And quite often you'll find that you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't do 1, 2, 4, 3 or 1, 2, 4, 5. There will be people that ring you up and say, "Hey, I want to buy your product and I want to do it next week." But they rarely do. They end up rather than going 1 to 5, they end up saying, "Right, well, I actually do need to go 2 and 3 and 4."
So would a sales funnel be sort of that last mile then? To say, hey, we've kind of brought them along this process. Now it's time to close, to get an actual sale.
Well, the sales funnel is more of the way that you would. The sales process is what I would practically use every day, sitting in front of customers. I then come back and have to sit in front of a manager who says, "Right, okay, Tim, where are we in the process, and when is this going to close?" And okay, and what that person then does is take that away and forecast that to senior management. So I see it as more of a business planning tool rather than, yeah. But it's one of the, it's a very thin difference between the two.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's cool. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
What about digital leadership? How do you define that?
It's for me, it's a difficult one to actually work out. I think that you, as a person, you need to be providing people with insight. There's a lot of people out there that are hungry for information, and you need to be an educator. And I think that people then recognize you as a leader, but you also, I think, you've got to be saying something different. You've got to be giving a person insight, and that's the difficult part.
Mm. Yeah, it is, and that's. But you seem to be doing it quite well because of your ecosystem that you've been developing, your personal brand, your book brand, your organization's brand as well.
Yes, but it takes, this is there's no overnight sensation.
Yeah.
All this takes is, it's classic hard work and getting up early in the morning and going to bed late and delighting customers and getting, doing all the classic things that everybody does to be successful in business.
Yeah, no, fascinating. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate your time. How can we get in touch with you? How can we find you online?
So I'm on Twitter at Timothy_Hughes. That's TIMOTHY_Hughes, which is HUGHES. You can find me on LinkedIn, usually as Timothy Hughes or Tim Hughes. I'm on YouTube, and you can find the book on Amazon, Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, and we're at digitalleadershipassociates.com.
Fantastic. And if you're wondering, it's Tim Hughes, the good-looking one, right?
Yeah, okay.
The handsome bloke.
It's amazing what you can do with Photoshop.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've been using it for years. All right. Well, thanks again, Tim. Really appreciate it. And for those who are listening, you'll be able to find the links on breaking.digital. And once again, thank you, Tim, and we will see everybody online. Thank you very much for listening to Breaking Digital, the podcast for smart entrepreneurs wanting to become true digital leaders in their industry and to own online. If you have any comments on the program, please feel free to connect on Twitter at Doyle Buehler with the hashtag #OwnOnline. I would really appreciate it if you could share this podcast with your network, as I'm sure they will get some value from it for building their successful business online as well. You can find the resources that we talked about, as well as the transcript and full podcast for download on thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast or on iTunes or on SoundCloud. I'm Doyle Buehler, and I will see you online.
Thank you for listening to Breaking Digital with Doyle Buehler. While he goes and makes a sandwich, you can find all of the notes, links, and details on this podcast by visiting thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. Go on and click that now. www.thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. I'll definitely click that. If you'd like a free copy of the book, The Digital Delusion, How to Overcome the Misguidance and Misinformation Online, just send an email to doyle@thedigitaldelusion.com. See you online.